Hello everyone and welcome to our panel discussion on the Green Hydrogen Mission.
India is a nation on the move. Our homes, our cities, our industries need power for progress. Our transportation network needs greener fuel. We are growing exponentially and rethinking the way we power our lives. Along with this rapid growth, the need for a cleaner and more sustainable future becomes more critical than ever. And at the forefront of this change is the groundbreaking initiative by the government, that is, the National Green Hydrogen Mission, which was launched in January 2023 with an outlay of 19,744 crore up to the financial year 2029. The mission aspires to make India a global hub for producing, utilizing and exporting green hydrogen and its derivatives. So why do we need green hydrogen? Well, it is the lightest and most abundant element in the universe. Green hydrogen steps in as a clean fuel with potential to revolutionize the energy sector. It's a game changer as green hydrogen is produced using renewable energy, making it a sustainable and clean alternative to fossil fuels. Government of India is taking decisive steps for transitioning from fossil fuels to green hydrogen. It is responding to an escalating demand. In fact, annual allocation for green ammonia production has recently been increased by the government from 5,50,000 to 7,50,000 tons. The National Green Hydrogen Mission is a collaborative effort. The Government of India is also supporting public-private partnership framework for research, development and for pilot projects, fostering innovation and creating an ecosystem for development of green hydrogen in the country. By 2030, the mission envisions a 5 million metric ton annual green hydrogen production capacity. This translates to cleaner air and reduced reliance on imported fuels. It also has the potential of creating 6 lakh new jobs across the entire green hydrogen industry. The investments are pegged at a staggering 8 lakh crore rupees. This mission is fueling the green revolution. The Green Hydrogen Mission revolution propels India's commitment to net zero by 2070. The National Green Hydrogen Mission is a roadmap to a sustainable future where clean energy empowers a healthier and more prosperous nation.
Today we have amongst us the OGs of renewable energy, a set of panelists who have had a cumulative experience of over a century together. Let me introduce Mr. Bhupendra Bhalla, currently serving as the Secretary of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE. With over 3 decades of experience in the Indian Administrative Service, his notable roles include the Director of Banking at the Ministry of Finance, Counselor at the Embassy in Washington, D.C., and key positions in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. As the Secretary of MNRE, he is the forefront of planning and execution in India's ambitious green energy transition goals. Let me now introduce Mr. Sumant Sinha, the founder, chairman and CEO of ReNew, a NASDAQ-listed company. Mr. Sinha founded ReNew in 2011 and has built a green portfolio of about 15.6 gigawatt and has now expanded into crucial areas like green hydrogen, solar manufacturing and energy storage. Mr. Sinha also co-chairs the World Economic Forum Alliance of CEOs Climate Leaders. Let me finally introduce our third panelist, Mr. Pashu Gopalan, the chairman and CEO of Fennis Energy, formerly known as SunEdison, where he is focusing on building a distributed clean energy platform to decentralize, decarbonize and democratize energy access. He is also a director and advisor of Ohmium, which is focused on green hydrogen PEM technology in India. And finally, myself, Tanya Singhal, your moderator for today. I have built and founded SolarArise, where I have raised and deployed over 2,000 crores of capital to build large-scale grid-connected solar plants. Welcome to you all. On that note, let's deep dive into our discussion on green hydrogen and how it stands at the forefront of this energy transition, offering a clean, versatile solution to decarbonize sectors that have long relied on fossil fuels. So I think the best would be to first start by understanding what is green hydrogen? And I'll start with you, Secretary Sir. So, what exactly is green hydrogen, and how is it different from blue or grey hydrogen, which has been there in India for traditional years?
Let me try to explain. Grey hydrogen in normal terms is actually when we produce hydrogen from natural gas using a steam reform methanation process. What happens is that green hydrogen is actually produced when you use renewable energy to power the electrolyzer, which splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. If you use normal any other energy, then it will not be called green energy. So, one way of making green hydrogen is electrolysis of water. The second is biomass. I mean, if you use biomass and use a biochemical process to generate hydrogen directly from that process, it would still be classified as green. So, we have classified green hydrogen as far as India is concerned, and what we have done is we've termed it as if you use renewable energy to make this, or you use biomass to make it, then we will call it green hydrogen, provided the emissions are limited to 2 kg of carbon dioxide per kilogram of hydrogen.
Very interesting. So, it's actually the same hydrogen that has been produced, but the source of power that you have given is now clean. Interesting. Sumant, over to you. So, why do you think then green hydrogen is so crucial for taking the Indian transition story of getting net zero by 2070 and energy independence by 2047? How will this play a role in that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tanya. And the reason is that what people don't normally realize is that carbon emissions, the majority of carbon emissions, 75%, come from the energy sector. But electricity accounts for only 25% of the entire energy that is consumed. Now, for electricity, we know that we have a decarbonization solution available in the form of renewable energy. But what about the balance of the energy system, which is another 75%, which also emits carbon? And these are sectors like mobility, for example, whether it's airlines or ships or surface transport like cars and scooters and so on. Or you have industrial sectors like steel and cement and aluminum and so on. And then you have a lot of other areas where industries use energy for heating purposes and so on. So all of these collectively account for the balance of the energy ecosystem, and all of that emits carbon. Now, how do we decarbonize the rest of the energy ecosystem really is the question. And that is really where green hydrogen has a very, very critical role to play, because it allows us to start getting into solutions that work for a lot of the other energy consuming sectors. For example, you can make sustainable aviation fuel, which can allow you to replace the normal fuel that the airlines consume. Or for shipping, for example, you can use green methanol and so on, right? And so those kinds of things can be made using green hydrogen, which if you do it in the way that Mr. Bhalla just described, which is to use renewable energy to make the power, to power the electrolyzers, then you actually don't emit that much carbon dioxide. And therefore, the overall carbon emissions actually can go down substantially if we use green hydrogen in a lot of these applications. The other thing is, in some of these other areas, you can of course also use electricity by expanding the use of electricity through electric vehicles, for example. But unless you have green hydrogen to decarbonize a lot of these other industries, you are not going to be able to bring emissions reductions down to the level that we need to get to net zero.
Great. So it's very important for the audience to know that it's not just using the green energy to create something, but you may be flying completely green, and that's what you can come to. Great. So let's move this a little bit next. We have understood that the key objective of the National Hydrogen Mission is that you produce over 5 million tons of green hydrogen, and that will overlay at least 19,477 crores. So Bhalaji, from your end, what developments have you seen over the last year and a half in this whole domain?
I think since we launched the mission in January of last year, we've seen incredible developments in India. In fact, probably the world was also not expecting us to move that fast. And the industry members are here, they can corroborate that. We set in motion the process of not only awarding capacities under our site programs, which are incentive program. So for creating this ecosystem, we have, out of the 19,500, 19,700 crores that you mentioned, What 17,500 crore is for incentives. And these are two kinds of incentives. One is for green hydrogen production and one is for electrolyzer manufacturing. Both we have rolled out. In fact, as of today, we had a target of allocating 3,000 megawatt of electrolyzer capacity per annum, has been fully allocated. So that has already been done. And now these plants are coming up, and the next couple of years we should have these manufacturing capacities fully operational. On the green hydrogen production also, we've already awarded 4.1 lakh tons of green hydrogen capacity under the site scheme. That was fully awarded. Our new tender of 4.5 lakh tons is already out. People are now preparing to bid. The third aspect is also the aggregation. So, that's only the green hydrogen production, what we are trying to promote through incentive. But we also want to aggregate. We also want to create demand. For that, we have a 7.39 lakh tons of green ammonia tender for our fertilizer companies who want to procure. And that is already, bid is already out, and now people are getting ready to bid for it. In addition, oil companies have started preparing for, as was mentioned, on their sector of refining, how to convert their gray hydrogen currently and use green hydrogen instead. So that's the kind of progress we've made on the incentives part. But that's not all. Apart from that, we've worked on the R&D. For us, R&D is going to be a big game changer. If you really want to reduce the cost of hydrogen, green hydrogen, R&D is going to play a big role. So we have a 400 crore R&D budget. Call for proposals. We got more than 400 proposals for our thing, and we are going to finalize it shortly. Standards, we've been working on standards. About 100 standards have already been notified, and more are in progress. So we're trying to work on the entire ecosystem. And just to give a flavor of what I'm saying, how the industry has agreed that things are moving. And our target is 5 million metric tons, which we've announced under the mission, of green hydrogen capacity per annum. And if you look at all the projects which have been announced so far, including my guest panelists here, and all the industry put together, we have about 7.4 million metric tons of green hydrogen projects already announced by the industry. And that kind of reinforces what we thought, that we are moving on the right track. Even the industry is confident that the ecosystem is there for it to be a success.
Very nice. So, picking on the fact, Pashu, that Balaji mentioned in terms of the whole manufacturing, how are you seeing the manufacturing sector looking at this, and specifically, the whole site scheme and the overlay that is coming from the government? How is that coming across, both in terms of the manufacturing itself of green hydrogen?
What India has done is extremely visionary. We're starting the support for manufacturing almost at the same time. And if you look at the 2 rounds of site awards, there are several technologies. Many companies have come forward to take risk and work with the government and adopt the program to set up manufacturing, which is a big deal at this early stage. So I think it's a great move in the direction of making India a manufacturing hub, and very pleased to see what the government has done so far.
Great. And just for my audience, if they don't know, SITE is actually the Strategic Interventions for Green Hydrogen Transition. It's a scheme, again, launched there. Sumant, I'll come to you. There's 75 countries who have actually outlaid strategies for hydrogen, and you see a lot of potential for international collaboration there in the whole sector. How would you see this specifically as somebody who's been at the forefront of the renewable energy space? What kind of export opportunities or collaborations can we look with our international counterparts?
Yeah, I think the way we in industry look at the opportunity for green hydrogen really is in 2 buckets. One is the domestic Indian opportunity, and the other is, of course, the international opportunity. And they both have to be looked at simultaneously. As far as the global opportunity is concerned, there are large markets which have also set very significant targets. For example, the European Union has set a target that they want to get to 20 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. Out of which they want to import 10 million tons of green hydrogen. Now that gives an opportunity for people in India or players in India to find ways of exporting this capacity to the European Union. Having said that, however, the EU is actually moving a lot slower than, for example, Mr. Bhalla talked about creating demand in India. Eventually it will happen, but it's taking time. And the reason for that is that it's more expensive today. And so globally, countries have two ways in which they can proceed on green hydrogen. Either you give subsidies, right, and bring the cost differential between grey hydrogen and green hydrogen down, or you mandate industries and say you have to do it. There's no choice. For a certain percentage, you have to do it. But because that then imposes a cost on the end consumer, therefore countries are a little bit whiffling and waffling right now. They're not moving as fast as I would have expected a year or 2 years ago. Nevertheless, I'm very confident that eventually this industry will become very large. It may not happen at the targets that people are stating, but certainly will happen. Now, the Far East is another very important market for Indian companies, and from the eastern seaboard, we can actually be exporting to Japan and Korea and so on. And those are discussions that we're having and projects that we're setting up. As far as the India opportunity is concerned, I would say, just because Mr. Bhalla has already talked about all the things that are happening, the only thing I would say is a relative comment, which is that when talking to or looking at what other countries are doing, all these 75 other countries, and seeing what India is doing, I would say India is actually being very progressive and very much is in the vanguard of creating that demand. And the speed at which the Indian government is going to create demand in the market here, I see other countries being much slower on that demand creation than we are seeing here right now. So that's actually very interesting, and that is really where I think kudos have to be given to the Indian government to be moving at such speed and scale.
Well, as a developer, I would also add to say it is genuinely something that we should be proud of, because we've taken all that years of learning that we've put in renewable, and we're translating all of that to say start manufacturing at the same time, way ahead of others, to be ready for export potential. Coming to that whole renewable angle again, Secretary Sir, how is this whole renewable portfolio energy that we have, over 200 gigawatts already installed, a very large portion still expected for the 500 gigawatt target, how is that going to play a role in the whole green hydrogen transition?
The biggest debate right now in the world is what would be the cost of green hydrogen which actually comes to the market on a commercial basis.
Yes.
And since the first plants are yet to become operational, it is an unknown number. But there are, of course, calculations. Everybody who's investing is doing calculations on the basis of the total cost and so on. But it's still a number, it's still a guess. What is going to be very crucial is what is the gap between the grey hydrogen cost, which is supposed to be lower, and the green hydrogen cost, which is supposed to be higher as of now. If we can bridge that gap, and if we can make it, we're going to make it confident, bring confidence from the demand side, that yes, you will be able to get the same hydrogen, a green hydrogen instead of grey, at that cost which you are buying a grey hydrogen. I think there's no dearth of demand, not only in India but across the world. So the biggest impact of that, the biggest way we can reduce the cost is renewable energy. 70% of the cost, it is estimated that when you're looking at the costing of green hydrogen, 70% of the cost is from the power aspect, the energy aspect. And India, as you know, has done very well. And since you're a developer, you will appreciate that we have achieved, I think, one of the record prices, the lowest prices of renewable energy in the world. We also have 200 gigawatt of capacity. We have the largest integrated national grids in the world. We can produce at one corner of India and consume at the other corner. So we have, I think, the best framework, in the world to produce green hydrogen at the lowest cost. And that is why we feel that the renewable energy, the way we have developed and the ecosystem we have made, and of course, how we are progressing further, moving towards 500. I don't think the cost of renewable energy will change that much. It might fall, but it will not go really high. And I think that will create lower the cost of green hydrogen relative to what is being going to produce in the world, and looking at the demand which is coming up both in India and abroad, I think we should be able to get that market.
Very good. Looking at the same perspective on an investment basis, there is still expectation of more than 8 lakh crores to be the investment amount that is needed. Pashu, your opinion on this whole investment outlook, and specifically more not just at the development side, but as a manufacturing side, as somebody is looking at this technology closely, what is the investment outlook for it? And we've seen that investment follows when there is return. We're still slightly more expensive than grey or blue hydrogen. So how does that stack in terms of investment philosophy?
See, I think if you look at it comprehensively as an investor in setting up manufacturing plants, I think there is a lot of visibility. It's not bad at all. I think India has done a very good job by creating the site program. And unlike, for example, solar manufacturing, you would understand in solar that investing in module is a lot lower. The challenge is going to be which one of the companies developing the technology and product are going to backward integrate and go all the way to start investing in the electrolytic cell itself and the stack itself, right? We started about 5 years back now, and very happy to say that our entire manufacturing is integrated in India, right? The equivalent to that would be to start making silicon and wafers in India in the solar industry, right? So we've started with that. If you take the easy route and only allow for investments in simply assembling stacks which are procured from China, either directly or indirectly, then the manufacturing industry may not build its strength and be able to support India fully in its growth and become a hub. So I think we invested in India because of the resources available in India. I think India has some of the brightest people in the world, and the visibility that the government has given in terms of national mission and side programs. So I think others will find the same reasons to invest and grow deeper in building their products.
Suman, I will just ask you the same question as a follow-up, right? In terms of investment outlook, and specifically as you're seeing global markets coming into India, do you see the same level of enthusiasm that has been there for renewable investment as you see for green hydrogen? Just because we heard the manufacturing angle, but what about as a development angle?
Yeah, I think a lot depends, as you said earlier, on the returns that you can make. Yes. And the returns very critically depend on the offtake contracts that you can get. And the offtake contracts depend, of course, on subsidies at this point in time. And it depends on the competitive environment. And the competitive environment is yet to be fully discovered. It may very well be that people go into it in a very big way and returns end up being not that high. Or they may end up being reasonably decent. So we'll have to a little bit wait and see how the industry develops. It's very hard to give an answer today. Right. But the only thing I would say is that, and this is a very interesting conundrum for the government actually, 70% of the cost of renewables, of green hydrogen is in fact renewables. Renewables itself is an industry that is taking off by leaps and bounds, primarily because of all the efforts of MNRE and secretaries are here. Now, as that takes off, renewable energy can actually go in other directions too. For it to go in this direction, it will have to compete. Green hydrogen will actually therefore have to compete in some way with the regular electricity renewable energy sector to get that renewable energy to come here. And if the returns here are not good enough, then it may not come here. So I think a lot of these things have to be evolved. The other very interesting thing is that as far as manufacturing is concerned, another conundrum for the government is, should we import from China at a lower price, potentially, or can people like Pashu make it here at the same price? Right? Because price, unlike in renewable energy, where we still have the ability of letting the price of solar go up a little bit because it's much cheaper than coal, here it's actually not cheaper than the alternative, which is the fossil fuel. And so therefore that is going to be a very interesting issue for the government to take a decision on.
But moving gears a little bit, as a common man or as a common citizen, why should I be concerned on what is happening in terms of the green hydrogen mission, or how much investment is coming in, or whether it's blue, grey? Why does it matter to me as a common guy?
I think it matters. One way it directly matters is the number of jobs it would create. We estimate that the entire 5 million metric tons target that we have for green hydrogen, if you take the entire value chain, starting from renewable energy production till the consumption, till manufacturing and so on and so forth, transportation, I think we estimate that it will create about 6 lakh jobs. And that is not a mean number for India, and that is something. And in fact, we feel that it will also develop of all skills of all kinds, and therefore I think the public and the citizens would get a benefit of that. And of course, once it's also a fact that once something new develops, then the ancillaries also come up. This is just counting the broad number. Actually, when you look at all the indirect jobs which are created, I think it may be much larger. The second aspect I would say is the kind of carbon emissions that we are trying to abate. You know, we estimate that 1 million tons of green hydrogen would prevent about 10 million metric tons of carbon dioxide every year. So, 5 million metric tons would actually, we will be saving about 50 million metric tons of carbon from, you know, polluting our country. And I think that is also something which is useful for all the citizens. I think these two direct aspects would be relevant for the citizens.
Very interesting. So, Pashu, looking at this more on a technical basis, what future technologies or innovations do you see that will help get this sector up, and also, you know, both more in terms of skilling of people, so that the industry expands in its way? Innovations, technologies, whatever growth drivers would you see?
See, you know, what we've learned from other renewable technologies is in hydrogen, you know, we measure the levelized cost of hydrogen or levelized cost of ammonia we produce. And clearly there's been some discussion already today about how the cost of green hydrogen is higher than grey hydrogen, what people are buying today, right? So there will be a race to get the cost structure as closer to parity as possible, and then get even better than parity, right? So that'll be, so all the innovation is going to be geared around cost reduction. Second is, there was also mention about 60-70% of hydrogen's cost is actually the electricity that's used, right? So today we may be using 50 units of electricity to make 1 kilogram of hydrogen, and everybody is going to try to reduce that number from 50 to 49 to 45, whatever is theoretically possible, closer to 45, right? So there will be efficiency improvement related innovations, right? Other innovations are renewable itself is somewhat difficult power when you take it into a hydrogen equipment, because when you have clouds passing over a large solar power plant, the solar production can go down to zero immediately and come back up. So all of these variations are hard to deal with at the electrolyzer, which is, I'm sure people are working on developing technologies that's going to work. So, you know, we have chosen to work on a technology which we feel better addresses, but we'll see. I think whoever is able to deliver better levelized cost of hydrogen will continue to deliver and grow their technology.
Yeah. So we heard a few challenges that Pashu mentioned more in the manufacturing part, but in terms of development, you know, again, the plants are still in process, but do you foresee any specific challenges that people should be wary about as a developer for green hydrogen? Suman?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, look, we haven't really had the development of a large-scale green hydrogen plant so far. And so therefore, and especially using renewable energy as the electricity provider in that, and then how is that going to you know, be compatible with the operation of the electrolyzer, and then of course how do you bring the cost of this whole system down, and then eventually if you want to, for example, export the green hydrogen, you have to convert it into ammonia and then reconvert it at the point of usage from ammonia to hydrogen, then the whole shipping industry, which of course there's already a tradable you know, sort of industry for ammonia, but then if that size increases, do you have the ships available for all of that? Then pipeline design, where you're trying to get it through pipelines. So there are quite a few of those kinds of issues. I mean, for example, you know, Indian refineries are now looking to try to start having green hydrogen. Now the refineries are not always connected to an interstate transmission network. Very often they're connected to a state transmission network. So do they have enough capacity of power that we can take to those refineries? Is there sufficient land around the refineries to put up the electrolyzer? So those are all very practical constraints that will come up that we'll all have to collectively solve, which I'm sure we can find the technological solutions for or the technical solutions for, but the cost implication is something that we'll all have to collectively discover as we go forward. And the only way we can do that is actually by doing it. And then as we start doing it, hopefully we all become sharper and more sort of sensible and have more expertise, and then we can bring the prices down to some extent. You know, to what extent still remains to be seen.
I think based on that, any final thoughts, Pashu, from your end in terms of where you are, what you feel, and any last minute advice that you want to give to our audience?
I think the one thing that I'll leave all of us to think about this is there's always going to be a desire to, as quickly as possible, produce the lowest cost of hydrogen, right? And the Chinese manufacturing industry already has about 35 to 40 gigawatts of manufacturing capacity. and the top 3 are globally are already the Chinese, and several solar ones have moved. So I think the world is a competitive space, and the Chinese will directly or indirectly find a way to sell their electrolyzers and capacity, and India has emerged as one of the best destinations in the world thanks to all the policy work we have done. But if we miss this opportunity to completely transform India, and we have to remember that energy has always created countries like Saudi, Norway, and UAE. That's the power of energy, and we can really be self-dependent as well as serve the world. And for that, we have to make sure that our foundation of manufacturing and R&D and development is very, very strong from day one. And we don't take the shortcut of allowing for dumping by Chinese companies of their electrolyzer, because they're already building a very, very large capacity from day one.
Got it. Sumant, any closing thoughts from your end or advice or things that people should be careful on?
Look, I think that this is obviously a massive opportunity, right? I think it's an opportunity that is really going to grow between, let's say, 2030 and 2040. The next 5 years, we have the opportunity of actually creating the foundation, as you rightly said, for this industry. And that is really what we have to do. And as you said, we are off to a good start. And we just have to build on it. Now, there will be all of these policy issues that will come up, whether you want the cheapest or whether you want domestic, and those are things that we'll have to solve as we go forward. But I think, to me, the renewable energy industry's development offers a good model, and I think if we can follow the same kind of playbook, then I think we'll be very successful, and hopefully we'll be able to reduce our fossil fuel imports eventually by a huge amount.
Any closing thoughts, Balaji?
I think we are actually at the right stage. We have a good policy framework in place. The industry is already started working on it. They are happy with what's going on. Of course, there will always be some challenges. There. As was mentioned, we will start, we'll keep meeting those challenges by taking appropriate decisions at the right time when required. We are definitely in favor of protecting the industry. We've done that in solar manufacturing. We will make sure that electrolyzer manufacturing, when it comes on age, will get the support that we need. But at the moment, I think we have to take a policy call on taking a decision at the right time. But we will definitely be supporting. I think we are there. We're almost there. But again, I wouldn't say we have reached the end. We are almost there. We've taken a good start. We're right in the middle somewhere, a little short of the middle. I think we need to make sure that we reach the end as quickly as possible, but successfully.
We're actually on to a very good foundation, and now it's about one step at a time to get to that goal, where we not just, power the energy sector by green, but also look at the hard to abate industries and revolutionize this whole power to say, how do we reach our 2070 net zero targets and get green hydrogen to help us in this process. Thank you so much. That is from our end. This is Tanya signing out from your end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.